Hello, I'm Victoria Hall-Smith, producer and host of PCTV, Personal Computer Television. This is Lon Poole. And we're going to show you all of the neat things you can do with Apple's new System 7. As most of you know, Lon is the quick tips columnist for Macworld magazine and a best-selling Macintosh author. His popular Macworld Guide to System 7 made the computer bestseller list its first week out, and it's one in a series of Macworld books published by IDG Books Worldwide. Lon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Victoria. It's nice to be here.
Your book is very thick because there are so many new improvements to System 7. Let's start off with a quick overview and just give them some highlights.
That's a great idea. Well, the first thing you'll notice if you've got a color Macintosh is that there's a lot more use of color in System 7. We have color icons. The title bars of the active window has color highlighting that gives it a 3D look. You'll find color in the Apple menu, and there can be color in other menus as well. Even text highlighting can be in color. It looks like you've used a highlighting pen for the part you've selected to edit. And there's a new menu over here, the Help menu. You can turn on cartoon-style balloons that describe the item you're pointing at. So there's no more guessing about what that thing is. Now you just point at it and you get a description.
We certainly heard a lot about the balloon help, and that's it.
Yeah. And right next door to the Help menu is another new menu, the Application menu. This menu is here because in System 7 you can open as many programs as your Mac has memory for. I have 4 programs open right now on this 5 megabyte Macintosh.
So anything below the line or applications that you have open.
Right, and I can switch to any one of those just by choosing it from the menu. These other commands up here allow me to hide and show windows, so I can remove some of the window clutter that tends to build up when you're using lots of programs.
Let's go back to the Apple menu. You just touched it lightly. What changes are there?
Well, the Apple menu has desk accessories, but it can now have other items as well. Here's a folder in the Apple menu, and you can put application programs, documents, in fact, anything that can be opened in the Finder, you can put in the Apple menu just by dragging it into a folder that's inside the System folder.
Now the Finder. Now I know there are a lot of improvements in Finder. You cover a lot of that in your book. Let's just take a quick look at that.
Okay. Well, I opened the disk here, and we can see the disk contents at a glance. We're looking at a by name view here, but we see an outline of what's in every folder. The little arrows over here allow us to expand and collapse. If I click that arrow, it collapses the Apple menu folder. I'll click it again, and it'll expand it back out. And there are a lot of ways to customize a view like this. You can change the size of the size and the font of the text. You can change the size of the icons. You can decide which of these columns of text are going to be there, all using a new control panel.
So you can customize it to your exact needs.
That's right. And there, down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see another new item. All these icons,
which are all in italics.
Right, all the names are in italics. That's because they are aliases. An alias is a small file that points to another file that was generally much larger. So these, for example, point to application programs. I can open it simply by double-clicking it, just as if it were the real icon, the icon for the real original item. There are a lot of uses for aliases, which you enumerate in your book, and we're going to cover those in detail later also. Absolutely. There's some other new menu commands in the Finder. One of the most interesting is the Find command. Now, at last, the Finder can find things that you can't remember where they are.
It actually finds now.
Yeah, it actually finds not only by name, but by a host of other criteria, such as size, the label that you can apply to it, the kind of item it is. And it works fast, too. It's a fast find.
And what about desk accessories? What have we done there?
Okay, well, there are desk accessories in the Apple menu, as you see, but these are installed not using the Font DA mover, but simply by dragging them into this folder, the Apple menu items folder, which is inside the System folder. Desk accessories can also exist on the desktop or in folders, and here's an alias of the chooser, the desk accessory chooser, and by double-clicking it, I open it just as if it were an application program. So desk accessories are easier to deal with, and they behave just like little application programs now. Oh, here's another new thing, the trash. Trash still bulges when I drag something to it, but the big difference is that it stays in there. Whatever I put in the trash stays there. You have to choose empty trash to get rid of it. So restarting your Mac, shutting down, opening another program, none of those things that used to empty the trash will empty it anymore.
So essentially you cannot accidentally throw things away like you could before.
That's right.
Okay,
Yep.
so we've got our brief overview now.
Right, but it's just a taste of what you'll encounter when you first install System 7. There are dozens of new capabilities that you'll find as you work through it. And there are capabilities, major capabilities, we haven't had time to show here. Things like virtual memory, file sharing, publish and subscribe.
That's a good start, Lon. But we're not done yet. Next, we'll take you step by step through many of the new features of System 7, showing you tips and shortcuts that will allow you to make the most of this new Macintosh operating system. We'll be right back with our first segment. Lon, let's go now to the Finder and see how that can be used for organizing documents and programs.
Okay, well, I'm going to assume that you've already learned a lot by experimenting with the Finder, because there's a lot you can learn. Here's a window that shows a view by name, and if I want to go in and look at the contents of that folder, we know I can just click this little arrow here and expand the folder. But instead of doing just that, I want to go in and look at everything that's inside that folder. So that would include the contents of any folders that are within it. If I hold down the Option key while I click, then that's what I see, is the contents of the folder I expanded plus what's inside of those folders, and if there were others, it would keep going.
So it's just infinite until you're to the
Right.
very bottom there.
Right. Now if I do Select All and I want to see everything that's in that window, I can press Command, Option, right arrow, and it will expand the entire contents of the window, all the folders that are inside that, so that you see the entire folder structure again. And going the other way, I can do a Select All and press Command, Option, left arrow, and we're back to our condensed view of things. There's a related trick here. What we're looking at here is a view into the folder structure, but let's suppose that we're inside it somewhere and we want to come back out. I have an alias here that will help us get quickly to a folder that's buried deep inside that folder structure. There's the name of the folder that we're looking at. If I press Command and then click that name, we can see all the folders that we'd have to go through from the disk down to, or up to, depending on your point of view, the folder whose window we're looking at right now. If I choose one of those, that's where we go. And if I press the Option key while I choose it, then the window that's currently open will close.
So that listing that we just saw essentially is the path from the folder to the disk. Is that not true?
That's correct. And here you can see it for this folder. It's a shorter list because we're closer to the disk.
That's a good feature, so you can see what the path is. Let's talk about the unique new scrolling capabilities that System 7 has. I know they're pretty neat.
Okay, let's open this folder right here and take a look at what's in it in an icon view. Now I've got some more stuff over here that I can't see. Instead of using the scroll bar, I can just press the mouse and drag and everything comes into view.
That's new.
Yeah. Okay, and I can do the same thing while I have icons selected. Let's say I want to put those over there underneath the other folder icons and just drop them right there. Well, maybe I don't want to put them right there. Here's the undo for dragging items. Just drag them up to the menu bar and let go of the mouse, and they will go back where they were.
Just exactly where they were.
That's right.
Now, what if you want to move an item within a folder and combine it into another folder in that same window?
Okay. To see that, we'll expand this folder again, and I've got a poster that I created down here, and I want to make a duplicate of it because I'm going to make a billboard based on it. So I'll press the Option key while I drag it. Now that's the trick, is you press the Option key to make a copy, instead of just moving. Drag it up. You notice as I drag, it scrolls automatically. I want to put it in this folder. So as I let go of the mouse, we make a copy.
And if you didn't use that Option key, you'd be dragging the original.
That's right. We'd be dragging the original instead of making a copy.
So you can kill two birds with one stone. You can move it and copy at the same time.
That's right. Okay, and now I want to rename this because it still has the name of the original item. So it's going to be called billboard. It's now called poster. I can select that. You may remember there's two ways to select the icon name for editing. You can either click the name directly, or you can click the icon and then press the return key or the enter key, and that will select the name for entering. Now if I press, there's a couple other shortcuts. Press the up arrow key at this point, you'll go to the beginning of the name. The down arrow key goes to the end. So you can go back quickly to either end of the name. And of course the right and left arrow keys move as you'd expect.
Okay, so you can insert somewhere in the middle there easily enough.
Right, but what I want to do is change that whole word from poster to billboard. So I'll just double click the word. Then I can type a replacement for it. And either click somewhere outside to complete the editing, or press the enter key or the return key again. And my item is renamed. Now, I also want to mention that while you're editing icon names, the edit menu works, so you can copy and paste complete or partial icon names.
Zooming. Let's move around here real quickly. Let's zoom around here and show the zooming capabilities.
Okay, let's press the zoom box. And as you'd expect in System 7, the window expands just big enough to show the contents of what's in the window, so it doesn't widen out all the way. If instead I wanted to have the window be the full size of the screen, I can press the Option key while I click the zoom box.
Don't know why you'd want to do that, but if you do, that's how you do it.
If you have an icon view that you want to rearrange the icons because they're messy, you could either change, and there's not enough room to do the rearranging, you could use the grow box and make the window any size you want, but it might be faster just to click Option zoom like that. And now you've got all the room you want to rearrange icons.
Okay. Now, as we said before, the Finder actually finds things now.
That's
so
right.
let's some tips about that.
Yeah, there's some less obvious things about that too. Let's say you've written some kind of a Microsoft Word document, but you can't remember what you called it.
Not unusual.
Yeah, so you want to find it. All right, choose the find command, and whatever you typed in there last time will be still typed in and selected. But what we want is the More Choices option. We're going to look by kind. And there it is, by kind. Notice there are all these other criteria we can use. But I'm not going to settle for one of these standard kinds. I know that what I want is a Microsoft Word document, so I'll type Word. And I'll click the Find button, and it's going to find some Microsoft Word document. That's not the one I want, so I'll use Find again to look for another one. Well, it's going to go through
everything in that file because they're all Word documents, but none of them are the right one.
Here's a shortcut. Close the window, and now use the Find Again command. It'll go to the next folder, and there it is. That's the one I wanted. I just couldn't remember what I had called it. So now I'm ready to open it just by double-clicking or whatever. I've got this trash can down here that's bulging, and I want to get rid of the stuff that's in there.
Yeah, the ubiquitous trash can. What kind of exciting things does it do for us?
I'm just going to empty the trash, and I get this little notice that I've got 7 items, and I say, yeah, I know, that's what I want to get rid of. And I click OK. Now, the Finder tells me there are some locked items in there, and it will not get rid of locked items. There's no way to do it. You have to go in and unlock them all. If I click Continue here, it'll get rid of everything else. So what I have to do to get rid of those locked items is open the window, and I can't tell which ones are locked.
I was going to say, how do you tell that?
Okay. Let's go to a by name view, and we'll zoom out to see the whole thing, and there's a little padlock, shows which ones are locked. Oh, wait a minute. I just noticed the chooser is in here, and I don't want that. I don't want to throw that away. Well, I could drag that back where it came, and in this case it's easy because it goes on the desktop. If it went into some folder in the middle of my disk somewhere, it'd be easier just to use the put away command. Then it'll go back to the same level it came from. Puts it back on the desktop here for me. Now, these are the two things I want to unlock here so I can throw them away. So I press the Shift key so that I can select more than one thing at a time, click the locks of the items that I want. Now I use the Get Info command to see the info windows. Quickly I can just click the lock box to unlock it and the close box to close it for both of them. Just go like that and they're unlocked. Now if I choose empty trash, it gets rid of them all because they're not locked anymore.
That was a lot of information in a short period of time, but obviously we're not finished. There's still more. We have aliases yet to cover. All right, so we'll cover aliases in our next segment. Let's start off talking about aliases.
Okay, aliases are a new capability of System 7. The Finder makes good use of aliases to help you organize your programs and documents. And there are a couple of tricks about aliases. One is if you want to make aliases for several items at once, for example, I'd like to make aliases for the PR folder and the ads folder and this SOAR Air folder all at the same time. So I'll select them all at once by pressing Shift while I click and then choose Make Alias. Makes aliases for all three, and we'll scroll here so you can see the other ones, but notice they're all selected right now, and I'm going to drag those to the desktop so I can get at them more easily, and I'll just arrange them here in a more
So making aliases, whether it's one or many, it's just as simple as clicking on Make Alias.
That's right, that's all there is to it. Now, all these names have the word alias at the end of them, and I personally don't like that. I can tell it's an alias because the name's italic. So there are two methods to quickly remove that. One is to press is to double-click the word alias, press delete once, and then there's still a space there which is hard to see. Press delete again to get rid of that. And I'll show you on this one how to get another method, which is to select the alias name again and press the right arrow key to move to the end of the name, and then just press the delete key 6 times and you're done. So that's that method again.
Not terribly different than changing icon labels as we did earlier.
Another thing you'll notice is that the alias inherits the icon and the label from the original item, but I could select that and give it a different label, and I gave it a pink label, and so the icon's now pink. And I can also give it a different icon if I want, and I have an icon here in the scrapbook. This, of course, you can do with any icon on the desktop. You can customize its icon like this. But in this case, I'm going to change the alias icon. Now the alias looks like my custom icon, and the original item right here, well, I opened it there. The original item looks different. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but an alias may lose track of its original item, and you can always tell where the alias came from by using the Get Info command and reading right here. It says the original, and this tells you the path from the hard disk through the folders to where the original item is. And you can also click the Find Original button, and that will open the window that contains the original item and select the original item. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of ways you can use aliases. One real good way to do it is to put an alias for the Apple menu in the Apple menu items folder, and I've done that right here. So I've renamed it slightly, but in fact we'll open that by choosing it from the Apple menu. And now you can see this is the contents of the Apple menu items folder, and there's the alias that we just saw in the Apple menu. It's right here. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you'll also notice I have one for the startup items folder because I change my startup items from time to time, and it's handy just to be able to get at them quickly. And then I have other aliases in the Apple menu items folder as well, just because it works out better usually to put an alias here rather than the real thing. A lot of these programs have to have associated files and folders with them that I don't want to have cluttering up the Apple menu items folder. And I also have some of those same aliases here on the desktop for even handier access.
And I assume you can also use it if you're working on a project and you want some information repeated several times in several different files. You could just use aliases in each
Sure.
of those and not have to keep copying the original.
Right. For example, I have a folder inside my Documents folder. I have the letters that I'm working on right now in this folder, Letters in Waiting. But when I finish a letter, it may end up somewhere in another folder, in one of my project folders. But I also keep a chronological file of all the correspondence by putting an alias for the letter in this year's mail by date. And then if I want, I can look through in chronological order. The aliases that you have on the desktop are easy to find when you're using an open dialog box also. Let's just open Microsoft Word, and we can take a look at how easy that is to do. We'll use the Open command, and we'll use the Desktop button to take us back to the desktop level. And here you can see the aliases that I put on the desktop show up on the desktop level. Now these are aliases, to folders that were buried somewhere in the hard disk. So I don't have to open the hard disk and then open another folder. I can get directly to this just by double-clicking it. And there, that folder is open. And you can see that this is all we would have had to go through from the desktop if it weren't for the alias. Now suppose I want to get out, I don't want this folder to open, I don't want phys ads, I want something else that I know is in the same folder as phys ads. If I press the Option key and then open phys ads, it goes to the original item, it goes to that alias's original item, which is right here. And there I can see the other items that are in the same folder with it, and then I could say open that one.
How do we use aliases to help us archive on floppies?
Well, we might want to save some space by taking a folder that we're not using anymore and copying that to a floppy disk and making an alias of that folder on the floppy and then putting that alias back on the hard disk. I've copied this folder to this floppy disk, and now we'll make an alias of it. And notice that we're making the alias on the floppy disk because we want an alias to that item there. We'll copy that alias back to the hard disk. And it'll show up there in a minute. And now, you'd expect that if I opened that alias, that the folder from the floppy disk would open. But what you might not expect is that if I eject that disk and double-click the alias again, the Finder asks me to put in the disk. So I'll put that disk back in. And there's the window again. I've got another item here on the desktop. This Demos and Examples icon is a server that I'm sharing from another Macintosh on the network. And I'm going to make an alias for that too, because this will make it easier to connect to that server the next time I want to use it. Now if I put the original server away, I can get at it again quickly just by double-clicking its alias. And there it opens up. And you'll notice that its original icon also appeared on the desktop. So we have the alias icon and the original icon for the server. There are a lot of other ways that aliases expedite file sharing too. You can actually make an alias of your hard disk, copy it to a floppy disk, then use that floppy disk in any other Macintosh to access your hard disk, any other Macintosh on the network.
That's pretty exciting. Can you show us?
Sure. Let's just clean up some of this stuff so we can see what's happening here. Now you select your hard disk, choose sharing from the file menu to set access privileges on that. Check the share this item and its contents option to turn that on, and turn off all these access privileges, so only you will have access to your hard disk using this floppy. Close that window and click the Save button to save those changes to the access privileges. Now with the hard disk still selected, you can choose Make Alias to make an alias of it, and insert a floppy disk and drag that alias to the floppy disk, making a copy of it on the floppy. Now you can eject that disk and use it on any other Macintosh on your network to access your Macintosh. Now, Victoria, you've made a floppy disk like that for your
Yes, I did.
hard disk. Let's try inserting that in my machine. And we'll open that. There's the icon for your hard disk. And if I double click that, it's going to ask me for your password, which is your initials, right? AF.
Yeah, Atlas Fang. That's my
Okay.
name.
And there's your hard disk on my Macintosh.
That was pretty exciting. That was actually pretty easy, too.
Yeah.
That's a neat capability. Obviously, aliases are very useful. We've just touched on a few of them here, but I'm sure as you go along trying them out, you're going to find plenty of uses yourself. There have been a lot of changes in how you open and save documents. Why don't you show us some highlights?
Okay, most of the changes take place when you use the open and save commands in programs, but here's one thing, one change in the Finder. This document is a teach text document. Ordinarily, double-clicking it would open the document in teach text, but I can now drag it to any compatible application like Microsoft Word, and you notice the icon lights up. By letting go while it's lit up, it opens in Microsoft Word.
So essentially that's the drag open feature.
That's the drag open feature. And the rest of the changes do take place in the applications. Let's take a look at teach text and see how those work. And I'll choose the open command here. You can see that where I have a long document name, the system is using compressed text. If the name is more than 25 characters, compare the word sore air here with the ones right above it, and you'll see how compressed they are to make them fit.
Oh yeah, there's quite a difference.
Yeah. So I'll open one of these documents in the conventional way just by double-clicking it. Oh wait, I don't want to open that one. Now, if I let go, I'm going to open whatever's highlighted, but I can undo that by just backing out of the window and then letting go of the mouse button. And this is the one I really want to open. Okay, there it is. Now let's look at the Save As command to see some more changes. Some of the first things you'll notice, there's a new folder button right here, and by clicking that, it gives me the opportunity right here to create a new folder. Let's make a new folder called Sore Air Stationery. Great. Now you can also navigate here in the Save command dialog box by using the keyboard the way you've always been able to do in the Open dialog. And for example, I can click Command D. Instead of clicking the desktop button, I can press Command D, and it'll take me to the desktop. Now, by just typing, first, notice that the name of the document is highlighted here. That means if I type, the typing will replace that name. By pressing the Tab key, I change the selection to be the window, and now the typing will select items in that directory window. I'll type the letter S, and immediately the first thing that starts with an S is selected. I can open that folder. In this case, it's an alias. You can tell by the italics, by pressing the Return or Enter key. And here we are back in the SOAR Air folder. And I'll go back into the stationery, again by just pressing the Return key. Now I'm ready to save, but if I do any typing, nothing happens because the directory window is still selected. So I have to use the Tab key again, or I can just click there with the pointer, and I'm going to change this to be, change the name of this. Now you notice I've titled this stationery. I'm going to use this option down here. By clicking this icon, I'm telling TeachText that I want to save this as a stationery pad instead of an ordinary document. Not all programs take advantage of the stationery option yet. There is
to
another
save as a stationery option.
Right, but there's another way that you can make a document a stationery pad. Just go back to the Finder and select the item you want to become a stationery pad. Choose Get Info from the File menu. And if it's locked, you have to unlock it. And then make it a stationery pad by clicking that option. That's all there is to it. You'll notice that the icon changes. In this case, it's a generic icon because there is no specific icon for Word Stationery yet. Now, there are some situations where you don't want to use stationery, though you might be tempted to. For example, if you have an envelope that's an envelope template, what you do with it is open it, paste a name, print the envelope, and then close the document without saving it. If you made that a stationery pad, then every time you opened it, you'd get a copy of the envelope instead of opening the original. So the best thing to do in that case would be not make it a stationery pad, but lock it. Then when you open it, you'll get the original, but the original will be protected against you making any inadvertent changes, saving any inadvertent changes by virtue of the locked setting. And that pretty well concludes the changes to open and save.
Right. System 7 gives you more ability than ever before to customize how your system looks. Let's see some highlights of that.
Okay. Well, you may have noticed as I was using the Apple menu that it's very structured, and I set it up that way intentionally. We can, by opening the Apple menu items folder here, we can see how that works. You see the same structure evident here, and I achieved this by adding spaces at the beginning of names to get these items to come at the top of the list. There are 2 spaces in front of all the names in this group. There's 1 space in front of the names of all the items in this group, no spaces here. And these items, rather than using a space as a prefix, I use this special character, which you can type by pressing Option and V. That's V like Victoria.
Oh, good.
And then you may notice these dividers as well. The dividers are nothing but empty folders, which I created by using the new folder command. And then I just named them by typing a string of hyphens and prefixing with the appropriate number of blank spaces. To get this little symbol over here, I used the Get Info command and pasted a picture of some hyphens in as the icon for that folder. And if I use the Clear command, you'll see that that's what the normal icon would look like, but instead I've replaced it with this special icon.
So that's how you got those lines in there.
Right, so the net effect looks like this.
So you have yours very organized.
Yes, well, and so you can organize it any way you like. Now you may have also noticed that the desktop pattern here is a solid blue. This isn't one of the standard desktop patterns that ships with System 7. This is one we created specially. You can create your own desktop pattern by using the General Controls control panel and select any of the colors that you see here. Suppose you want to use hot pink, and then just click in this area up here, and you'll see that it shows up in the sample swatch over here. Now if I were to click that, that would become my desktop pattern. But suppose I don't like that color, I want any of these colors, I want to use something different. So I'll just pick one that I don't want to use and double click it. This dialog box called the color picker shows up, and just by pressing and dragging around inside the circle, I can choose any color I want. I can, instead of having what this is a light sky blue, I could make it be a bright yellow. If I click OK, then that color shows up here, and I can use it in my desktop pattern.
Pretty simple.
Okay, I'm not going to change the desktop pattern, we'll just leave it the solid blue. Another new control panel, the Views control panel, has lots of options for changing the way list views by name, by size, and so forth look. They're pretty obvious, but there are a few things you may not notice right away. There's a pop-up menu that shows sizes that you can choose, and if you want a size that's not listed there, just type it. I'm going to type 13, and when I press the Enter key here, all the text in the Finder windows will change to 13-point size. A lot easier to read.
Some of them are going to run together, I would assume.
Yeah, some of them run together, and there may be some other changes you could make that would cause conflicts like that too. For example, by choosing a larger icon size for list views here, that may cause some spacing changes too. But let's take a look at what you can do about that. Look at all these names run together. All I've got to do is use the cleanup command, and the Finder will rearrange the whole window for me so that there are no more name conflicts. Simple as that. Before I go on, let me change the point size back to 9 points so the words aren't quite so big.
Relieve the pressure there.
Yeah. And the Calculate Folder Sizes option is real interesting because it gives you the opportunity to see how much is in your folders in a list view. But it can take a while for the Finder to calculate folder sizes, so don't be surprised at that. One other thing here, show comments. When you have 9-point text, if you turn that on, you'll see up to 25 characters of comments. But if the comments are longer than that, the rest of it will be cut off.
Now, where do we get the show comments? The comments that we're showing, where does it come?
The comments are going to show up here in the list view, and the comments come from whatever you've typed in using the getinfo command.
Oh, all the times I've been looking at it, I've missed the comments box down there, or I just haven't paid attention to it. These are my comments.
These are my comments about this, and when I click Enter, there they are.
Okay, but you're limited to 25 characters, so that's
right,
why
I'm limited to 25 characters.
Make them meaningful but short.
And you'll see these all fit, but if I'd made a longer comment there, it wouldn't have fit. Let's take a look at a way you can use the cleanup command to organize the icons in a window. Right now these icons are organized by name, but we can organize them by any of the other list view categories in the view menu. Let's try by kind. After choosing by kind, we just choose by icon again. Now press the Option key while choosing cleanup. Notice that the name of the command has changed, cleanup by kind. When I choose it, the icons are instantly rearranged by kind. And there's one other way to customize the Finder that's not real obvious. The label menu colors can be changed, so you're not stuck with what you get out of the box. To do that, you use another new control panel called Labels, and you can see pretty obvious that you can change the name of any of the labels. That name's highlighted to be changed, so we could change it to what? Marketing. But I can also change the color just by clicking it, and we get the color wheel that we looked at a little earlier in this segment, and I just drag around that color wheel until I find some other color that I want.
I like that.
You like that right there?
Right
okay,
there.
kind of goes with your shirt. and now we have a new label color.
Obviously, customizing is even easier than ever, and a strength of the Macintosh is made even better, it looks like.
Now let's take a look at the Startup Items folder. Inside the Startup Items folder, you can put programs, documents, anything that can be opened that you want to have opened when you start up your Macintosh. However, if you put desk accessories or control panels or folders, things like that in, those will be opened as a separate group after the Finder opens programs and documents in alphabetical order. And it may even happen that the Finder will stop opening items, and you'll have to go back and return to the Finder using the application menu or by clicking the desktop before that second group of items will be open. Two of the other special folders, the control panels and extension folders, may contain other items that are loaded at startup time. The extension folder contains system extensions, which used to be called inits or startup documents, and some control panels also contain that same type of item. Older control panels and extensions may not work if they're placed in these two special folders. If you have some that don't work, you can just place them directly in the system folder and they probably will work there. If you place a control panel directly in the system folder, make an alias of it and put the alias in the control panels folder to make it more accessible. There are two other kinds of special folders that are normally invisible, but under some circumstances you may be able to see. One of those cases is when you're sharing someone else's disk, and I'll open this file server here that I'm sharing from your computer. If you look at the bottom of this window, you'll see two folders down here. I can see these on my machine, but you won't see those on your machine. They're invisible to you. One is the desktop folder that contains, as you might expect, the items from the desktop on your machine. The other is the trash, which contains the items in your trash.
So there are some features about the special folders that aren't obvious, but they are certainly valuable.
Right.
With all these new capabilities, obviously now memory is becoming a very important issue. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. There's a new control panel with System 7, the memory control panel, that helps you manage your memory. You can ignore that control panel and the burden of memory management in general if you never open more than one program at a time and don't care about your computer's performance or your own. But think of memory management as a pie, managing a pie. You need to know the overall size of the pie, how big a slice of the pie each program is going to take, and even how much of a slice a new program you want to open will take. To see how much, to analyze how your memory is being used now, use the About This Macintosh command in the Finder. A window will open that shows a bar chart of each program that's open. You see the total amount of memory used, how the memory is being used. The dark part of the bar shows how much is in use now. And you can see also how much memory is available for opening a program. This is actually the size of the largest block of memory available, and that's the total amount in the Macintosh. Suppose that we wanted to open a new program that we know, let's say America Online, we know is going to take 700K. We only have 255K in the largest unused block. So it seems reasonable that if we quit Microsoft Word, which is 512K, that we'd have over 700K available to open America Online. But what we'd find would happen is that, in fact, it wouldn't work. Microsoft Word was the first program that I opened. So quitting Microsoft Word would leave a 512K block in one place in memory. There'd be a 255K block somewhere else, and we couldn't put the two together. And that's a condition called fragmented memory. The only way to cure fragmented memory is to quit every program that you have open and then reopen the ones that you absolutely need. And the best procedure is to open them in the order of most importance, the most important first and the least important last. That way, if you have to quit a program, you can quit the least important one, and you'll have a solid block of memory to work with. You may be able to use a larger memory pie on your Macintosh by turning on 32-bit addressing. This is a capability that's available on some Macintosh models. If yours has it, you'll see this 32-bit addressing option in the memory control panel. And other models of Macintosh can also increase the memory pie by using a technique called virtual memory. This is also new to System 7. Again, this section of the control panel will appear if your Macintosh has this capability. And when you turn virtual memory on, you'll make certain settings to determine how large the amount of virtual memory you're going to use is. So, because you're using the hard disk for part of your memory, you can notice a degradation of system performance. And to keep that degradation to a minimum, you should, as a rule of thumb, set your virtual memory size to about 2 times the amount of RAM that you have installed. And it's also a good idea to use that virtual memory for opening multiple programs and not for trying to open one big program that's bigger than the amount of RAM you have installed. That's almost certain to lead to a lot of hard disk activity that's called thrashing.
So, in other words, as I said before, we've got all these capabilities. Memory has now become an issue, but obviously they've dealt with that issue. The Macintosh has always had built-in networking, and now it has built-in file sharing as well. Let's talk about that.
Okay, you're right. The Mac has always had built-in networking. Not everybody has connected to a network and doesn't realize how easy it is to do. So let's just look how easy that is. You need a connector. You could use one of these from Apple. It uses special cables like this, or you can use a less expensive phone net connector from Farallon, and it uses a regular telephone cable to connect. So all you do is you plug one connector into the back of each Macintosh in the printer port, and then you connect them together with telephone cable. If you can plug an answering machine in at your house, you can certainly connect a network.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah. And then once you've connected the network, you start file sharing by using the sharing setup control panel. And you'll see there's a place in the sharing setup control panel to name your Macintosh and to specify the owner's name. Now usually that'll be you, but doesn't have to be. And you also enter an owner password. You'll notice that after you type the password, it's replaced by these dots so that it's secure. No one else can tell what your password is. You do that one time, really. That's all. You do it and it's done. To turn on file sharing, use the same control panel. Click the Start button right here, and you can watch the status messages over here. It takes a while to start file sharing, and the more disk drives you have connected to your Macintosh, the longer it'll take. Once file sharing starts, you'll see that the Start button changes to a Stop button. The message says file sharing is on, and this icon changes as well. It used to look just like a plain folder, and now it has network wires coming out the bottom. After you've started file sharing, you can specify which of the items you want to share. They can be disks or they can be folders. So you just select the item you want to share, choose Sharing from the File menu, and turn on the option that says Share this item and its contents. Now, sharing an item, like sharing this disk, will share everything that's on that disk, all the folders and everything that's in the folders as well. Now, later on we'll take a look at what all these options are for down here, but for now let's just turn on file sharing and leave it at that. Close that window and save the changes. If you want to unshare an item, you decide you don't want that available for other people to share anymore, do the same thing again. Select it, choose Sharing from the File menu, and turn it off. Close the window, again save the changes, and that's that. You'll notice when you share a folder that the icon actually changes. Let's just see what that looks like here. Again, we'll turn on sharing, close the window, save. Now watch the icon and you'll see that it gets little network wires. It also happens that if someone else were to access that folder, someone on another Macintosh, that a little face would appear in there. You could tell somebody was using that folder. The disk icons don't change the way folder icons do. File sharing also gives you control over who in the network uses your shared items, and that's done in another new control panel called Users and Groups. And you open that and you'll see that I've already set up a number of users. These would be, each of these icons would represent one person, one Macintosh that's on the network. They may not be connected right now to the network, but these people, I can designate special privileges for these people to access my my folders and disks, the ones that I'm sharing. And I can either restrict their access or I can grant them privileges that other people don't have. And I can also create groups. So let's just see what it takes to create a new person. Once the Users and Groups control panel is open, you can choose New User from the File menu, and an icon appears that you can name. And that's all there is to it. If you want, you can open that, and you can see there's some options to set here. I could decide that I don't want this user to be able to connect to my Macintosh at all. I can type a password in for this user. This would be the password that this user needs in order to get into my Macintosh. And if I want, I can even prohibit that user from changing the password I assign. Usually you'll just leave that blank and let the user fill in the password for himself or herself. Now, again, when you close the window, you save changes. To create a group, and you just use the new group command, and the same kind of thing happens. You get a new icon. And then to add individuals to a group, all you do is drag the individual icon into the group icon, lights up like a folder. When you let go of the mouse button, a message appears telling you the person is added to the group, and that's all there is to it.
And then whatever privileges the group had, that individual now has.
That's correct. All right, so let's take a look at how you assign privileges to shared items. We still have this folder, personal stuff, being shared. So we can go back in, well, we have to select it first, and then use the sharing command to set this array of options here. The bottom row is, these are the options these are the privileges that everyone on the network has. In fact, let's take a look just a minute at the users and groups again. Notice there's this one person named guest. This would be for anybody who connects to the network that you don't have registered specifically. They could still connect to your Macintosh as a guest. Well, when you assign access privileges for an item that you're sharing, these privileges here would affect guests. So if you wanted to deny all access to your shared items to guests, you just turn all those privileges off. Now in the users, you can also designate special privileges for one user or one group of users, and you choose those from a pop-up menu. And these are all the users that I have registered in my users and groups control panel, and the groups that I've registered. And similarly, you can set special privileges for the owner, and you can also change the owner. It starts out being the owner of the Macintosh, but I could make it any other person, or I could make it a group. So I could allow this group more access, let's say, than this group just by clicking these options. If I turn on this option down at the bottom, then the item that's being shared can't be moved or renamed or deleted, and the option right above it will force all of the folders inside of this shared item to have exactly these privileges. Now, you can actually, And then you have to save changes, of course. And if you change the owner, then the Mac asks you if you're sure you want to do that. And if you change privileges of everything inside, the same thing happens. Now, it turns out that if you share a disk or some folder that has other folders inside it, you can set the access privileges of those contained folders, the inner folders, differently than the outer ones. And you just go in and select each item that you want to change the access privileges and use the sharing command for it and make the changes. All right, so now let's take a look at how you would share someone else's folders on the network. We can close this window. We won't need that anymore. In this case, you use the chooser. And you may be familiar with the chooser for choosing different printers, but when file sharing is installed, there's now an icon called Apple Share. And when you click that, a list appears on the other side of the chooser of the other Macintosh computers that are connected on the network at this time. And you just select the Macintosh that you want to connect to, click OK, and a dialog box comes up asking you to register on that Macintosh. You can connect as a guest if you want, or as a registered user. And you can type any name in as a registered user. If you type a name that doesn't exist, that the other Macintosh user hasn't set up in his or her users and groups control panel, then you'll be denied access. And you also have to type in your password. You'll notice that there's a button here to change the password on that Macintosh if you want. After you've typed in your password, click OK. Wait while the connection's made. It may take a few seconds.
While the other machine's making sure that you're legal.
Right. And then you're presented with a list of the items that are available to you on that Macintosh. And there may be some grayed items that show up here as well. If there are, that means those items are you're either already connected to them, or you don't have the access privileges to access them. You just select the item you want to share. If you want to share more than one, press the Shift key while you click multiple items. And you'll notice these check boxes over here. If you click the check box, then that highlighted item will be automatically shared when you start up your Macintosh, so you don't have to go through this procedure every time. And you have the option, in this case, of just saving the name, and if you choose that option, then the Macintosh will prompt you during the startup period for your password. Or you can have the Macintosh remember your name and password. That's clearly a little less secure, so the most secure option is just to do this, and then you have to type in your password every time. And click OK. Now if you watch over here, an icon appears for the shared item. We can close the chooser now. We're done with that. Remember in the segment on aliases that there's a quick way of accessing this in the future, aside from setting it up to automatically appear at startup time, and that would be to make an alias of it using the make alias command in the file menu. Let's open the file server. Now it has a special icon to let you know that it's a shared item, and inside you'll see all the contents of that disk or folder, and we can move some of them around, but we may find that some of them can't be changed. Now you'll notice that there are 4 different kinds of icons here. There's a regular folder icon, and that's you have complete access to that item. You can open it, you can put items into it, you can even drag items from it to the trash, but you don't own it. It may be hard to see on your screen here, but there's a little black bar at the top of this folder icon. That means that you are the owner of that folder. And a folder with a strap around it means that the folder you're denied access to that folder. You can't open it. You can't put things into it even. However, if the icon has a strap and an arrow, that means you can put things into that folder. It's like a drop box or an inbox, but you can't open it and take a look at what's in there. So those are the 4 different types of folder icons that you might see on an item that you're sharing from someone. And that's really about all there is to file sharing.
It seems so easy. I'm impressed. It makes networking pretty exciting now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, living documents, that creates all kinds of images in the mind. Tell us what it really means, though, and how you create them.
Okay. Well, in System 7, developers can add new commands to the Edit menu, Create Publisher, and Subscribe To, that let your documents share information dynamically. You could think of it as live copy and paste. So, for example, I could select this chart and choose Create Publisher from the Edit menu, and I will save a live copy of that chart on the disk in a file called an edition file. These terms are borrowed from the publishing industry, and they make some sense, you'll see as we go through. You'll also notice there's a preview over here of what the edition looks like. Click the Publish button, and that's all there is to it. Now, in order for those changes to be saved, to be permanent, I have to save the document that I'm working in. Now I can go to another document and subscribe to that edition. And if I come back and make any changes to this chart, then the changes will create a new edition, and that edition will go to the subscriber.
So the dynamic linking is there.
Right. So let's take a look at how you might subscribe to. And we'll go to another program to do that. I've created the text for a poster here, and I'd like to subscribe to a graphic image that I've already published from another program. So I select the point at which I want that to subscribe, and choose Subscribe To from the Edit menu. Now you notice that in this program the implementation is a little different. We have hierarchical menus here, but it's basically the same idea. And now I'll get a dialog box, and I can choose the edition that I want to subscribe to. In this case, I want the shoes. And notice, again, here the preview shows up to give you an idea of what it is you're subscribing to before you commit. Click Subscribe, and there it is. Notice that there's a border around that item. If I select that item, the subscribed item, the border shows me it is a subscriber, and I can go back in the publishing menu. Now there are subscriber options that I have. I can choose whether this subscriber will be updated automatically whenever the original is changed, or whether I want to only have updates to this particular subscriber manually when I come back in and click this button right here, Get Edition Now. And some programs also have other options. Here we see there are options that allow me to make modifications to the subscriber. This is a little unusual. Usually subscribers can't be changed very much. There's a concept called adornment, and that may be, in the case of a graphic, for example, resizing it or cropping it. In the case of text, maybe you could change the text face, the font, throughout the whole subscriber. And there's a button over here, Open Publisher. This will actually go to the document that contains the publisher, the original item. So if I want to make changes to this thing, it's as easy as that. If it's not already open, then the Macintosh will find it. And the other document, the edition and the original item, the publisher, could be on another Macintosh on the network. They don't have to be on my Macintosh. I'm going to create another publisher here to show you that not only can I subscribe to an item, but I can include that subscriber within a publisher so they can be nested. I'll create a new publisher because I want to use the top part of this poster in another document I'm going to create. So you click on Publish, and it becomes a publisher.
So living documents are a little bit more than cut and paste, but just as easy to use.
Right.
Program linking, what is it? How do you use it?
Well, program linking allows programs to work together. A word processor, for example, might get its spell checking services from another program completely outside the word processor. To you, using the word processor, it would look like the spelling services were seamlessly integrated, but in fact, they would be separate modules. Now, as the user, you're not responsible for making those programs work together. The developers do that. They make the programs talk to one another. And the process is called inter-application communication, IAC for short. On the Macintosh, programs use a language called Apple events. They send messages to one another, do this, do that, do something else. And in fact, Apple events one day may make user scripting possible on a system-wide level. As it is now in HyperCard, just within HyperCard, you may one day be able to write little scripts that coordinate the efforts of several programs. But that'll always be an option to an individual user.
Well, let's see how it works.
Okay, well, two of the first programs to use System 7's program linking capabilities were Claris's Mac Project 2, version 2.5, and Resolve. Mac Project 2 keeps lots of tables of project-related information, but it can't graph the tabular information. Resolve can graph tabular information, it's a spreadsheet, and Resolve can be controlled by scripts. So Claris decided to write some Resolve scripts that prepare graphs and summary tables in response to Apple Events messages from Mac Project 2. And here's how it works. Using Mac Project 2, you build a project schedule in the usual manner, like this one here. As the project proceeds, you update it with actual start dates, completion dates, costs, and so on. Now, whenever you want a graph or a summary table based on the current status of your project, you choose the type of graph or summary you want from the Exchange submenu of Mac Project's file menu. Mac Project 2 then automatically exports all its tables that are needed for the item you chose, and that is, it saves them on disk in a plain text format that Resolve can understand. After Mac Project 2 exports its tables, it sends an Apple Events message to open Resolve if it's not already open, or to switch to Resolve if it is open. You see Resolve open on your Macintosh. Mac Project 2 sends Resolve a message then to open the document containing the script that creates the graph or summary table that you requested. And Resolve recognizes that the document contains a script and runs the script. You see Resolve constructing the spreadsheet on which the graph is based and then creating a graph. The Resolve script asks whether you want to copy the graph to the clipboard and then close the graph window without saving it. You can answer no if you want to change the graph's appearance. For example, you might want to change a resource allocation bar chart to a pie chart, and then you'd use Resolve's copy command to put a copy of the revised graph on the clipboard. Then you make Mac Project 2 the active program by clicking on it if you can see one of its windows, or by choosing it from the application menu. You open the Mac Project 2 window where you want to put the Resolve graph, scroll to a place where there's space, and choose Paste from the Edit menu. That puts a copy of the graph as a graphic in the Mac Project 2 window right there. You can drag the graph around and place it wherever you want it in Mac Project 2, resize it by dragging any of its handles if you want, and that's all there is to it. Well, there's one other thing. The programs that are linked don't have to be on the same Macintosh. For example, Resolve could have been on one Macintosh and Mac Project 2 on another. The system gives you some control over whether you allow other Macintoshes to link to your programs or not.
So essentially in program linking, the same underlying language and basic technology that allows live documents goes a step further and allows programs to link and share services.
That's right.
Well, Lon, now we've seen what it looks like and how a lot of it functions. Let's talk about it for just a second. One of the things that Apple's done is they've made a tremendous amount of hype about the fact this is a totally new operating system. But it's not. It's not a new operating system.
Well, it has a lot of new capabilities, but it looks like the old operating system that you're already used to. So you can just get used to its new capabilities at your own speed.
So a lot of people don't need to be intimidated by the thought that it's a totally new operating system.
No.
Not going to be a whole lot different. Of the new capabilities, which ones are available right away when you boot up, and which ones are going to require some program updates?
Well, almost everything's available right when you first install the system. But the few things that we've talked about that will require program updates include Publish and Subscribe, Balloon Help, program linking, and the 32-bit addressing option. If you turn that on, the programs you use while that's on have to be what's called 32-bit clean. Everything else is available right when you first install.
Okay. So along that same line, then, that tremendous investment that you have in software, is your current software going to run on this thing, or are you going to have some problems?
For the most part, it'll work. Now, you may find a few glitches here and there, and I'd say be prepared for more system crashes than what you've experienced with older system software. And that's not because of system software, it's because the programs will work more reliably when they are updated for System 7. So as you upgrade your application programs, the overall system reliability will improve too. But I think the benefits are worth installing it now, not waiting for 6 months.
For the next version.
For the next versions of your applications to come out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, one last issue, but a real important one, and that is memory and storage. They say all you need is 2 megabytes and you can run that. Well, that's not quite true, is it?
Well, yeah, you can actually run System 7 in 2 megabytes as long as you don't want to open any big programs and you don't want to use file sharing. But you have about 900K left out of 2 megabytes in which to open a program. That's usually what it works out to. So I'd say figure on needing an extra megabyte more than what you're using right now. Unless you're using Multi-Finder right now, in which case the same amount should work. Actually, 4 megabytes or 5 megabytes is a real comfortable amount to use for System 7. And then as far as storage goes, well, you need a hard disk. That's the bottom line.
No way around that.
No way around that, and it's going to need to be a good sized one. If you use virtual memory, the virtual memory demands start at around 10 megabytes of hard disk storage. So, you know, that's a half of a 20 megabyte hard disk.
Right, so you need something bigger than that.
40 megabytes or more, I'd say, yeah.
Okay. Well, anybody who has any more questions that we didn't quite get answered, they can just read your book.
Okay.
All right. Lon, thanks so much.
Thank you.